I commonly hear people say, I love your templates, but I only have single-sided paper. Your templates don't work with that. Actually, I think they kind of almost all do. I don't show it often though, and I totally get that. I love double-sided paper. I often show double-sided paper, but I do want to stop occasionally and show you it with single-sided paper so that you can get some inspiration no matter what is in your collection or what kind of paper you are trying to bust. So today we have a 12 by 12 template and a 12 by 12 single-sided piece of pattern paper. Hi, I'm Jess from jesscrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. I often use double-sided paper. It's my go-to, but today I wanted to share single-sided paper in part because when I first look at this sketch, I automatically think I want double-sided paper. I actually think, oh, this could be a little busy. Maybe I really need the double patterns to kind of mix things up. And so I want to show you, even if my instinct is like, oh yeah, double-sided would look great, or I've only done it with double-sided in the past, you can absolutely do almost every single one of my templates with single-sided paper. It's just what you personally prefer. So we're gonna take a 12 by 12 piece of paper. This is paper busting template for 12 by 12, an A2 card, number 17, which means there are 16 other ones available at jesscrafts.com. This one is available at the first link in the video description. And you can also just buy them in packs on Etsy. So if you don't like downloading the templates individually, you can get that pack. And in fact, right now, the pack is 1 through 20 or 11 through 20. So if you want to get some of the templates before they're being released for free, just because, it's fun to get things in advance, you can go to the Etsy shop and grab that. My patrons also get early access to the templates, so you can check that out. Okay, so we've cut them to 4 inches by 12 inches. And then it says to cut, what does it tell? 4 by 4.75. And then we're gonna cut it diagonally. So 4 3/4. I always go, like the program that I use to make my templates works best with decimal points. And then I don't know which is more or less confusing to people. Like, would fractions or decimal points make more sense? I'm kind of stuck either way. I don't really have much of a choice, but I don't know. I've gotten so used to converting them at this point, I don't even hesitate. I'm like, yep, 0.75 is 3/4. So if nothing else, maybe I'm reinforcing some of those math skills. When they said, you're gonna use this one day, and you're like, I don't remember the last time I needed fractions. Well, then you became a crafter and you're like, actually, I absolutely do need fractions. I need to know all about measurements and parts of an inch and all that jazz. So here we are making good use of all those math lessons. And we're gonna cut to 4 3/4, 4 3/4, and then this piece that is 4 by 2.5 is getting cut to 1 1/4. Luckily though, if you're not a big fan of math, I've done most of the math for you. You know what I mean? Like, I figured out how to cut the paper to not have the scraps. That's probably, I'm gonna assume, the harder part of the math. The measurements you're probably used to. Okay, so then, this is the kind of like the interesting, fun thing about this template is it has this diagonal cut and then it's separated. And I don't see it on a lot of cards, especially with pattern paper, but I just wanted to try something a little bit different. So it says it is 3/4 of an inch on the shorter side. Now, something I want to say about this is you do not have to measure that. I gave you a measurement because there's going to be people who want to know exactly what to make it. So if that's you, and that's great, like, I'm happy to help, kind of make these sketches accessible and useful to everyone. Then you can take a pencil and any kind of ruler. I can do it right here on my trimmer and mark 3/4. Okay, and then it says it's 4 inches on the taller side, but doesn't give you. So I didn't give you a measurement for the other side. You can kind of just pick what you want, or you just measure that 3/4 inch, put your little line there, and then just pick an angle, like, oh, you know what, I think that looks good, chop. And if you want them to be really consistent, so you want all of your cards that you make in this series to go across at the same mark, what I would do is take one of the sheets you just cut, line it up in your paper trimmer, and then that way you don't have to do any additional measuring. You just do that one measurement in time. Okay. And we're gonna keep going and cut all of our papers like that. So we have all those larger pieces cut on the diagonal, and then we still have those strips that were 4 by 1 1/4. And I'm ready to think about how I want to embellish. I don't always think ahead, but I knew for this one, I wanted to keep my embellishment kind of simple because this pattern paper has a lot going on already. And so I think I'm just gonna put a die cut sentiment on top of it. And a simple hello, and I'll position it such that the like cutest part of the pattern paper fits or sticks out. But when I went to go do this, I knew I was going to use my Gina K cardstock for this dark brown piece. And Gina K cardstock is it's very nice. I like it. I think it's actually really well priced compared to some other craft company cardstocks. And those are great too. It's just, you know, like price per sheet. Gina K is really great. I use a lot of Recollections. I use some Park Lane. Gina K is solid core, just like Recollections. Park Lane is not. Park Lane is from Joann's. So I don't love that about it. But, you know, Recollections Michaels has limited colors. So sometimes, if I can, I will go and get some Gina K cardstock that is in the colors that I can't find. But the whole point is to say that when I have to buy more expensive pattern paper or cardstock, I am inclined to figure out how to use it most efficiently because, you know, it's a little bit more expensive per sheet. And I'm all about efficiency here. Like, I'm trying to make a card with no scraps, right? So what I am doing is I am taking I need a matte piece. So I want something that is 4 by 1 1/2 inch for the mat for this strip of pattern paper here. And I actually cut mine a little bit bigger just because I cut a 8 1/2 by 11 sheet in half perfectly. So here I am being wasteful and unwasteful all at the same time. I am a contradiction. Sorry about that, guys. But since I need to cut these mats to 1 1/2, I don't necessarily want to then have to use a whole separate piece of paper to cut the hello word that I'm going to be layering on top. So instead, as you can see, I have cut it out, and then when I go to put this pattern paper on top, it completely covers it. It's really close, and I actually wasn't sure if this was going to work when I cut the first one, but I figured it'd be worth it to find out, because I am going to make 6 of this, so if I can find a good, efficient way, I can use it across 6 cards. And that's the other thing about making multiples, is that at least, you know, when you come up with a good idea, you get to use it multiple times. So I'm going to cut that hello out of that strip and then layer these on top. So sometimes it's fun to know the like silly things that, you know, we professionals, I mean, I'm not a professional, it's a silly word. I'm not a professional, I'm just a crafter, but like, you know, the people are like, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. They have all this practice. No, I make the same mistakes constantly. I'm like, I probably want the top piece to match the bottom piece here, but I just chopped them and threw them all in a pile. So now I'm gonna have to go through and fit them all back together like a puzzle piece. So there's 2 that match. And yeah, so you know, you might want to actually put them aside together and not in a big old pile so that you don't have to do that at the end. It's not a big deal to fit them back together. And you actually don't even have to make them match up if you don't want to, but you know, just something I thought I would point out because I would have probably done it differently if I was, you know, paying attention. So we're gonna stick this here on the bottom, and I'm just gonna eyeball the measurements from the outside. And then the same thing on the top, and it will leave that strip of blank space there. And I do think it makes sense if they match up, but you do you, whichever like looks best. Oops, sorry about that. I just like knocked over something on my desk. Luckily not my coffee, right? Because that would have been a disaster. So I wanted to make sure that the piece that I chose through here was a really high contrast because I am doing that same pattern. So if you're working with single-sided paper, I do think a really high contrast sheet for your mat is a positive thing and will help out a lot. So like say you have a paper that's mostly red in the background, don't choose a coordinating red because then it's not really gonna pop off that other, same sheet of paper. Hopefully that made sense. And then here with this hello, I can position it on either side. If I put it like on this side, that might seem well balanced in some other ways, but I'm only seeing like partial fish. I am not seeing any eyes of the fish. So I think I would probably want it to be on the side that gives me something more interesting to look at. So I'm gonna make a different decision on most of these cards, depending on where the fish is, and I won't just be like, okay, I'm just gonna every time put it on the left. I incorporated the same brown in here for the word, in part because I wanted to do that efficient use of cardstock, but also because I don't want to introduce too many more patterns or things going on, because when I have so much of the same sheet of pattern paper, because I'm using single-sided paper, I don't have like a contrasting one to put across here. I want to keep it more simple to kind of counteract that potential busyness of same pattern on same pattern. So I went with a sentiment that not only was in a like really high pop contrast color, but also had this outline dye because it will stand off of the paper a bit more, and because it gives me an opportunity to take a like large chunk of solidness. So, between the letters is a lot of that different contrasting solid color. Hopefully, again, that all makes sense. Just trying to kind of share my thoughts for those of you who need some tips when you are dealing with so much of the same pattern because you're trying to use up those single-sided papers. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know that you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.